All right, we are really excited for today's guest. He is one of the most respected board builders on the planet, having made equipment for brands like Town & Country, Lightning Bolt, Brewer Boards, Surfing Hawaii, his own label of Island Classics, and Hawaiian Island Creations. He has shaped boards for a battalion of some of the most impactful surfers in history, from Michael and Eric Ho to Ronnie Burns, Sean Briley, Dwayne Mackey, Damian Hardman, Todd Chesser, Shane Beshen, Megan Abubo, Mark Hakalupo, Reef McIntosh, three-time world champion Andy Irons, Jack Robinson, and many more. And he has now focused his efforts on his namesake label in recent years. We have the one and only Eric Arakawa of Arakawa Surfboards. Eric, it is a genuine honor. Thank you so much for coming on the lineup.
Well, you actually, I was going to correct you. I was going to stop you. Well, and I haven't shaped for Town & Country, and actually, I did. I forgot. You're correct.
Okay, so it was right. Yeah.
You were right. I'm just going I was about to correct you, and I paused. And I go, oh wait, he's right. If I listen to you, I'll learn some things.
I'm glad someone is. So you're coming to us today from the North Shore, I'd imagine. So what's been your day like so far? What's the weather like? What have you gotten up to today?
Well, as you know, we've had a little bit of technical problems getting on here. It was pouring rain here, and this is the North Shore. In many ways, it's kind of the end of the road, and we get a lot of leftovers in terms of infrastructure and utilities. So it's a little spotty today. Excuse the inconvenience.
Yeah, no worries. We all know what it's like. And I guess it's like it's two sides of the same coin. Yeah, you are at the end of the road in a bit in terms of infrastructure, but the country vibe and the special community on the North Shore is, a little bit of the benefit, I'd imagine.
Well, I mean, that's the reason why we're here. And we put up with all that. In fact, we prefer it that way than having it flipped over and being like Honolulu. So, yeah, we're happy.
By the time this episode airs, we're going to be about a week away from the official start of the 2025 CT season with the Lexus Pipe Pro presented by Yeti. As someone who's experienced this specific rhythm on the North Shore of the winter season attracting an influx of surfers from around the world, how has that sat with you over the years, both as a resident of the North Shore and a very sought-after board builder? I'd imagine there are pluses and minuses to it.
Well, being a resident here, for the residents, it's a double-edged sword because it's exciting. There's a lot of activity. You get to see the best surfers in the world coming here. And so there's quite a bit of buzz. I mean, it's noticeable. Back when we had the Triple Crown, right at the end of October, you go into the supermarket, you go to Foodland, and then just everybody, you hear all these accents, you hear different languages, and it's buzzing. The lines are long. And if you're a Grom, you get to see all you have to do is hang out at Foodland, you see your favorite surf stars. But on the other hand, the traffic gets worse. It's hard to find housing. But we put up with it. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for our economy. On my end, being a board builder here, it's really good. We get to see friends, team riders, more interaction, and I won't lie, it is exciting. And I just regret that our season's not a little longer this year. But for us, it's a positive thing.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good note on Foodland. I've been fortunate to be at this company for 20 years now, and fortunate enough to go to the North Shore every year. And if it was for work, I was like, well, we could always just hang out at Foodland for a few hours, and we'll probably run into one of the surfers we need to get for something. Like it's always the best place to get stuff done. And but I'd imagine too, like with your decades of experience at the different brands and now at Arakawa Surfboards, you've probably had the opportunity to kind of like optimize that rhythm from a board building process. Like how early are surfers coming to you saying, I'm going to be here, these dates, I'd like X amount of boards, and is there any kind of proactivity on your side where you're like, this person always comes in, they're always a little late. Maybe we'll reach out like a few months earlier this year just to see what they need.
I have some stories, but I won't mention any names. Yeah. So, a lot of them are proactive. And because, I think because of the level of visibility of the sport and it becoming more global and the money involved, the surfers have had to become more organized and more proactive. But in the past, it was pretty loose. And, every once in a while, we do have a guy that just shows up that is slightly unprepared. But anyway, yeah. But I have a story just, as I mentioned, I won't mention any names. If you're listening, you know who you are. But I had a surfer call me from the airport, someone on the tour. This is a number of years ago. And I answered the phone and I go, oh, okay. I said, hello. And he said, hey, Eric, did I order any boards for the season this year? And I said, actually, no, you didn't. He's already at the airport. And he says, would it be too late to put an order in right now? Anyway, we got it done. But yeah. So
how much of your time now, like board development? Well, I'll ask now, but I'm curious to get your take on over the years too, if it's evolved. Like in terms of like R&D and model refinement and craft refinement, what's the balance for you working between, local surfers on the North Shore year round versus sort of incoming international surfers? Like how do you kind of balance out those two groups? And I guess another question is, do they have very different feedback, or is it all pretty similar?
I think the level and the depth of feedback differs. So our local crew here, part of their job description is to be there for us to develop the designs, and that is at top of the priority. Marketing and all that, yeah, it's great. One thing that comes along with that, but the most important thing is developing our surfboard designs. And that's on the ground. So with our local crew, we do this all year round. Like Shayden Piccaro has been indispensable in that area, and he's it's been a nice surprise because we had him under our nose for quite a few years, and then a few years ago, we just defined his role a bit more in detail and really just tell, hey, this is the main priority. Is we need the feedback. We need to do this systematically. And he just took on the role. I tell you what, he's just been incredible. And I have not worked with someone as particular and sensitive and being able to analyze what he feels under his feet. I haven't worked with someone like that since Michae Ho. And with Michae Ho, I was a young shaper at the time. And Mike was brutal. I thought when I started building boards for Michael, I thought I knew a lot, and I came to find out quickly that I knew very little. And he took me through boot camp, but it was so necessary. And 30 some odd years later, I got Shayden in there, and it's a little different, but just as effective. And so. Yeah, and then to answer the other side, the second part of that question, the CT guys, it was really difficult before because they're on the road, and the beginning of the season and end of the season were so close. So the schedule, the way it used to be, is the world champ would have to defend his title basically a month, just weeks later. Right now, we have more of an off season, which is good. So, we have I have some ideas I want to pitch, just to invest some time in the off season. And so, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but it's a little bit. It's one of the same. Again, the CT guys, right now it's better because there's a longer off season. So.
Right. That makes a ton of sense. And I think the last few years, I mean, we're fortunate. We have Vissla, they're supporting the CT Shaper rankings. And, one thing we try to do with it is, of course, like board programs in terms of like team size, it's not really apples to apples. Like some teams have, a dozen people, some people have one person. I like the program because we get to talk about everybody that's supporting kind of that class of surfers. But one of the things that we've been able to talk about over the last few years, it's been going on longer than that, of course, are these global surfers with maybe like a main board sponsor, but they're coming to the North Shore. They're getting quivers of Piccaros and Arakawas and Pangs because they trust those boards at Pipeline, at Sunset Beach. Has that been pretty consistent for you over the years, or is that kind of like cycle in and out in terms of that the CT coming in and wanting to ride sort of the local designs?
It's been pretty consistent for the most part, and there are some as you mentioned, cycles. Depending on the surfer and where they are at their stage of their career. But yeah, it does. It kind of ebbs and flows. But for the most part, there has been that influx of tour surfers that when they land here in Hawaii, they want to get equipment that's built and designed in Hawaii.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been interested to get your insights on too is, I think for a number of years, whether it's marketing or it's the surfing world or whatever, people have looked at that phenomenon of CT surfers coming to the North Shore and wanting to ride Arakawas or Piccaros or Pangs and then going, but then I'm going to get back on my other boards. And sometimes board builders, and this happens all over the world, they can get typecast, but with Arakawa, like you would be building, 6.0 roundtails for Andy Irons and he'd be winning in 2-foot Huntington Beach, and right. I think even that new design you mentioned with developing with Shayden, the Silmaril, like Arakawa boards travel, and it's not just sort of like North Shore waves. And I think people sometimes forget, like, yes, the North Shore has your Haleiwas and your Pipelines and your Sunset Beaches and everything along the 7 Mile Miracle, but there's all kinds of waves throughout the year, and I'd imagine all of them go into the different models that you develop throughout right. the season.
Yeah, I mean, we have all kinds of waves all over the islands, and the North Shore. Yeah, we got the powerful surf. Even on the mushy days, there's power. But in the off season, this summer, we surf the South Shore, and it's half the power, and we do have some really soft mushy waves. But again, the international surfers come to the North Shore. So we do spend time designing boards for their locales when they go home. So we're building boards for the QS. And say, for example, Alonso Correa jumped on our team 2 years ago. He came over and we just devoted some time just to build some boards for the QS. And one of them was a Silmaril, the other one was a Supo. We built a groveler, and he went back home and he actually won the first QS of the season on one of those boards. So he's actually spent time working with us, and we went through several iterations of the board, and until he finally just gave us a thumbs up. He goes, "Yep, this is it. I'm ready." So yeah, we do get typecast. We get typecast. And again, I mean, this is what we know very well. But again, we do have a variety of designs in our lineup.
Talk to me a little bit about the Silmaril and what that board's designed to do. And then sneaky sub question, who at Arakawa is the J.R.R. Tolkien fan?
Okay, let's see. The first part of that question, the Silmaril I tell you, it loves when you push on the rail. It responds when you push. It loves to go through big turns. And that's what we designed it for. It's not maybe say the best for a light-footed surfer, but it just loves a big open face that you want to carve on. And that was one of the designs we worked with Shayden initially, and then Alonso just refined it for the QS himself for certain locations. And my son, he is a Lord of the Rings J.R.R. Tolkien fan, and so. He's the one that gave it that name, and we struggled with it for a while at first, but it works. I mean,
I like it.
half the crew couldn't even pronounce it.
Right.
But,
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're good with it now.
I think it's a great name as far as board models go. I'm super into it. Before we go to break, as I said, this episode's going to drop really just days before the start of the CT season. Can you give us any insights onto who, if anyone, on the CT is going to be picking up boards from your factory on their way to the North Shore?
Well, Jack Robinson and Kanoa already have boards. So, and we've already, Kanoa's actually come back. We've already made a few modifications to those boards, tune-up, since this is like the first full quiver we've done. I've done just for several years now, boards to fill in for pipe and other places. But this is the first full quiver that we're doing for him, and shorter ones. So but those are the
Awesome.
main guys, and
Very cool.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break to get a word in from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back. This is the Lineup Podcast. I'm Dave Prodan here with Eric Arakawa of Arakawa Surfboards. Eric, it was awesome hearing your background and getting some of those stories in the opening section of the podcast, but let's wind it all the way back. Like when were you born? Where were you born? What was your family life like growing up? And how did you get into surfing and shaping?
Wow, we're going to go way back before the internet, before telephones. Not really. But anyway, I was born here in Hawaii, as well as my parents. I grew up in Pearl City on the South Shore, and I was born in 1960. So if you want to do a quick math, you know how old I am. Just a little bit of a fossil, but still alive and kicking. And I started building boards at an early age. I started surfing when I was 9, along with my two brothers, two younger brothers. We're a year apart. 3 boys in the family, needing 3 boards, a board each. And, you know what? You're not, actually being 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, you need a surfboard. And back in those days, I mean, there was no such thing as a ground board. No such thing as a board designed for our size and build. We just got hand-me-downs. So we get them from the trash can. We get them wherever we could, and we'd surf. Actually, my first board was actually a styrofoam board from the drugstore. It's a little tiny board. They all broke in pieces. But that's what we learned to surf on in Waikiki. And, my dad didn't go out and just buy a surfboard. So we had to go and call neighbors and relatives and ask if they wanted their lawns mowed. So we did. We work all day, get $1, and it definitely the price horizon just kept moving out and out. And I just decided, I'm going to cut to the chase. I think I'm going to do is I'm going to build my own board. So my younger brother had this really thick surfboard shaped by Craig Sugihara, the founder of Town and Country. And I commandeered that board, grabbed it, stripped all the glass off of it, and shaped myself another board. And I thought it was my very first board. I glassed it with the help of a friend, and I just thought it was the most beautiful board I've ever seen. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, I must have some talent. My first board, it's beautiful. I remember riding it, took it out to Piccaro the first day, and it just did not want to get down the face. It was, to this day, it was the absolute worst board I've ever ridden. There's not even a close second. It was the absolute worst board. And anyway, but I wish I still had that. I don't have it anymore. But it was definitely would have been the ugly duckling.
Yeah. So we're talking
beautiful to its owner.
Probably late 60s.
It was a long time. So that was
right,
no. So no. So that was we fast forward. It was a few years. And
70s. Yeah.
We did manage to get some hand-me-downs and got some boards in the water. But I started when I was 14 years old. So that was my first board. And then shortly after that, a friend asked me that same friend that helped me to glass that first board asked me to build one for himself. I have no reason. I don't know why, but. He did. We built that one. That one came out a little bit better than another friend, and then a friend of a friend, and then people that I didn't know asked me to build them boards. And one day, I just dawned on me. I go, I think I'm in business. So I kept doing it through school. Yeah. Yeah, and
did you didn't work for any other label? You didn't have any shapers that kind of taught you how to do it? You were almost self-taught.
I did. I did have some mentors in the beginning. It was just I was on my own, and then Ed Angulo, a friend of mine. It was a friend. He's actually a very well-known sailboard builder and designer. His two sons, Josh and Mark, became world champions. And he helped me along. I was 15, and he actually gave me templates to copy. He just let me just use whatever he had, let me copy whatever he had. And to me, that was kind of unheard of back then. But he helped me along. And then a few years later, I met Gene Canby, and who was a glasser. They worked for Harold Iggy, the surfboard shaping company. Harold was a prolific shaper, one of my favorite shapers, just passed away a few years ago, but he used to work for Weber. He's a Hawaiian that moved to California where all the work was, and the center of the industry at that time. And anyway, so I mean, I learned a lot from these guys. So it definitely wasn't, it wasn't completely on my own. Actually, very far from it. Just one day, I just discovered that I might be in business, and I kept doing it more and more, and I just started to really enjoy the craft. I just always loved working with my hands, and in my family, my grandmother and my parents emphasized education. So whatever we did, we were going to go to college. We were going to get a degree, and everyone in my family got a degree,
right?
Except for me, because 2 years into college, I decided to do this full time. And I was a business major, and I remember telling my dad, I want to do this full time. I'm gonna quit school, and that wasn't. I don't think that wasn't the thing that they wanted to hear at the time. But that's really that's where my heart was, and so I remember. My grandmother being at my house, and I came home from, I don't know where, from surfing or something. And I heard my dad trying to explain to my grandmother why I was quitting school. And she was not happy. And in my family, I have, my brother's an engineer. My sister is an attorney. She's got a journalism degree. My other brother's an educator. He has an education degree. And I have lawyers and doctors and dentists in my extended family, and I am the token surfer and college dropout. So, and so I guess I was just set out to make something out of this thing, so. In a certain sense, I kind of felt like I was always I was the black sheep of the family, and but it's been years, and I feel like surfing's come a long way.
Well, and I mean that is it's a family by the sounds of it of very high achievers, and I'd imagine that some of that ported over into your own ambition, right? Like we can talk about when you formed Island Classics, and do you feel like even though you were, as you pointed out, a college dropout, there was quite a lot of high IQ, high motivation to succeed in your career path anyway. Do you think that they weren't 100% exclusive, right?
No, it wasn't 100% exclusive. I mean, I think I was dealing with an inferiority complex, and that I was driven to try and make things happen, and actually to the point where, sometimes when you get what you wish for, sometimes you end up losing the reason why you got into doing it. And so, because I was so driven, I spent a lot of time working. And, at the same time, it's like I because of this complex, I actually had to at a certain point, I tried to get out of building surfboards, and I tried to. I had another business, actually an umbrella business. We did the accessory. We did nose guard, the nose guard product. I mean, I don't know if you remember that years ago. We were doing accessories, and I was trying to move myself out of shaping surfboards because I thought, well, maybe now I can be like, I can call myself more of a businessman, and maybe I won't be the surf bum of the family. So, anyway, as things worked out in the end, I just came smack face to face with being fully in surfboards again, just through a set of circumstances, and it was hard. I was scratching my head. I'm going like, I'm going full circle. I'm back here again. But I tell you what, right now, 25 years later from that event, I mean, I love surfboards. I love building surfboards more than I ever have. Even when I was 14 years old or my early 20s, I love. Monday morning comes around, or actually Sunday evening, I'm just going, okay, tomorrow's Monday. I'm ready. I'm like ready to go to the factory because I'm looking forward to it because I love what I do.
That's awesome to hear, and it's like, obviously surfing's like a unique lane, but like that trajectory, I think a lot of people can relate to. Like I always, my dad was an aerospace engineer, and, he would go through his career and he'd become a manager and a director and whatever. He ended up being like way up at the top. And he was pursuing that because he's like, well, there's more money and there's more prestige, et cetera. But then he was so unhappy because he's like, I just like being an engineer, but like, the society is not set up that way, right? And it's like, I want to do the things I want to do. I want to be able to live the life I want to live. But like, at the end of the day, it's awesome that you were able to come full circle and build boards, which seems like that was kind of your calling from the beginning. Yeah,
and you know what? And I've really come. It might sound a little stupid, maybe with me a little embarrassing to admit, but I've really come to embrace what I do. I mean, I love it. I'm not just saying it, but I do look forward to coming to work. And I've found, I think over the last 15 years, I found just a new purpose and vision for it. So, yeah. The shaping machines help too.
All right. Well, talk to me a little bit about that because, before I worked at the ASP, I worked at Rip Curl Surf Center, late 90s, early 2000s, was there in like high school and college. And that felt like a very tectonic shift in the board building community. And there were, fundamentalist holdouts that didn't want to, I'm always going to hand shape. But talk to me about your journey with just technology and the shaping machines and how you've experienced it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was always on the lookout for new technology, a new way, better way to build boards, new materials, looking for anything that would elevate performance. And then the machines came out, and the first ones were a little crude. The CNC machines have been around for years, but just the application to surfboards was fairly new. And I think initially people looked at it to up production, and Yeah, I saw that. I was looking at it from a slightly different perspective, actually, a very different perspective, and being able to replicate, to lift your consistency, being able to isolate changes and to be more detailed in those changes, and I thought this could really impact the way we design boards and the way we work with our team riders and what we develop surfboards, and it has it's impacted the industry that way, and I think in accelerating the development of our designs, but also it made us more productive, and I think it really helped businesses to be a little more profitable when it came to scaling.
Right. That makes sense. You mentioned working with team riders. Throughout this episode, we've referenced the incredible sort of like group of surfers that have been on Arakawa shapes throughout the last several years, from Michae Ho to Andy Irons to Jack Robinson. What has been your experience just working with team riders? And I mean, and I guess just your general approach, because as we said before, like some people will be, we're going to hit critical mass, we're going to have a huge team, but like it feels like you've been able to focus on maybe a smaller quantity of team riders, but like deeper and more intimate relationships where you've produced amazing results. I'm curious if you have like a specific philosophy to working with surfers. Yeah,
I've had a lot of experience over the years, and I've learned from my mistakes too. And it all comes down to the relationship. That's the key word. And you don't connect with everyone, and for
Right.
sometimes reasons that are no fault of anyone's, and you just don't have the synergy. And I've come to realize that you don't have to like just keep pushing things along. Sometimes it's just good to just separate and let both parties just connect with the right people. And it really comes down to that. And when you connect with someone, when you find that synergy, that's when it really works. And, I've been I've been in some shaper surfer relationships where it just seems to be labor, and you just never seem to connect, and the communication's not there. But as I said, when it works, it's great. And the other thing I found is that it doesn't matter how big you are. If you're one board designer, you only have so much bandwidth. And when you're talking about the CT, at that level of performance and what they demand and what they require out of their equipment, you just, and this is me, maybe there's some other board builders out there, other shapers and designers that have more capacity, but I found that my bandwidth can only go about two surfers deep. Maybe three at the most. I'm talking about at the CT level. It requires so much bandwidth, and I tell you, it's really demanding, and you can build a huge team, but honestly, I don't. It's really difficult.
Yeah. To
really give each surfer the amount of time required to build them equipment to compete at the highest level. And again, I mean, I look at me, that's me. So,
sure.
Yeah, there's other people out there that might have a lot more capacity than me. It requires a whole team.
Of course, yeah. And I was going to say, whether you're developing that relationship with a surfer where you're working with them or a few surfers throughout the season, or you're working with like a stable of high profile surfers who are coming to you seasonally because they trust you and they trust those boards in Hawaii, and it must be rewarding in both spaces as well, just to be working, whether they're CT athletes or just like elite level North Shore surfers. It must just be a real thrill as a shaper to see what they're doing on the equipment that you designed and built.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thrill. It's a thrill for the whole factory. I mean, like I mentioned, it requires a whole team, and I'm not talking about a team of surfers.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one aspect, but it requires a whole team behind me. I mean, I have another shaper by the name of Nat Woolley that I've been training up for a number of years. Our glassers, my son running the whole production, and we have our admin. We have Ryan doing all the operating the machine, and and I tell him, hey, you know what, you are not a machine operator. You are the first shaper. And that's what he is. And so it takes this whole team. Our glasser, the boards have to be glassed right. So it takes the whole team. And, when they do well, we all celebrate. And I absolutely cannot take all the credit. It takes a whole team to just put one board on the CT. And so
that's well said.
That's where we're at.
Yeah. We're going to take one more quick break to get a word in from our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the future of Arakawa Shapes and answer listener questions and hit the lightning round. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back to the Lineup Podcast. I am Dave Prodan here with the North Shore's Eric Arakawa of Arakawa Surfboards. Eric, I so appreciate your time and your insights. We've been talking a lot about where your designs have been and where your career has been. Talk to me a little bit about what you see for the future of Arakawa Surfboards. You were so generous in kind of calling out the entire team, but what did the next few years look like for you in terms of that board label?
What I have on my plate, the main priority I have right now is to invest in my team, the factory team. And I'm 64 right now. I still feel like I have a lot of good years left. But at the same time, I'm planning for the future, and it does take time to train up the next generation, and I think that's really what I'm most excited about. And that's another thing that gives me purpose here when I come to work on Monday mornings is to invest in my team. And I have a young crew, and they're hungry, they're skilled and capable, and have literally my core team has been brought up, actually raised in the factory, so at an early age, and so I feel blessed to actually have a crew a team that has been together for that many years. I'm talking about I've one. Nat's been with me for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's great. And my son grew up in the factory, and all my kids were required to work summers there. So
good. I encourage your son to stick with the Lord of the Rings names, like Anduril, Narsil, Orcus. I'm all for it. The Tolkien estate may come with the lawyers, so maybe don't take my advice, but I'd certainly be interested in an Arakawa Anduril model for sure.
Well, I'm sure he will take your word, and he's going to take it to a whole nother level.
But it's interesting too, you're talking about, you said you're 64. I wouldn't believe it if you, just looking at you, you look fantastic. I guess that's the surfing life. So, you maybe got one up on your family there. But my point there is that time and again, it feels like in the last few months, I've been having conversations with some of the most important board builders of the last several decades, of which I'd include Arakawa in the mix. And they are all talking about succession, whether it's Matt Biolis at Lost, or Britt Merrick at Channel Islands, or Jason Stevenson at JS Industries. And it is interesting because I feel like there is something in a board label named after someone, or where the lead shaper, the founder, is so associated with it. Is okay, what happens when they move on? What happens next? So it's interesting to hear you talk about it too, and it's cool that your family's invested in it as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really important for me, and often you see in the past board builders they would retire and that'd be done. That'd be it with the label.
Yeah.
I think we're in a different season. I think that with the technology available, I think it opens some of the doors. But really, technology is one thing, but technology without the people, it's short-lived. It doesn't amount to anything in the end. And what is most important is the team. It's the people, and that's my most important asset. And I'm fortunate enough to have the people, the talent, and I think the culture in here where succession is a possibility, and it doesn't happen by accident. So I'm really trying to be intentional about it, and I want to be involved. I'm not stepping out. I mean, I love doing this. I love doing what I'm doing. I've already written my new job title, and it's going to be Global Brand Ambassador. So I still plan on being involved. I just don't want to be required to show up every day at the factory. I want to surf more. I want to be the ambassador for the brand. I love shaping, so I want to go and I want to shape in Europe. I want to shape in Australia. I want to travel. I'm not doing that right now, but that's the title I want to have, and that's going to be my role in the business. And I have to make room for these guys because they're really talented. And honestly, if I were to really assess where I'm at and where they're at, I think they have more talent than I do. So, and if that is the truth, I need to move away and not hold them back.
That's very humble of you. But you also took it to where I wanted to wrap up our conversation before we got to the Instagram questions, which is, I'm glad to hear that you're still surfing. I'm glad to hear that you might be getting to surf more. What is your go-to board for everyday surf? What do you ride yourself?
You know, I'm still trying to figure that out because I like riding them all, and I tell you what, I like the board that the other guy's riding. So like,
right.
You know what? Often I'm riding boards. I'll pull boards out of our rack. We have a demo rack, a rental rack, and I'll pull boards out there. It used to be where I used to ride old team boards, and I can't anymore because they're too narrow and too thin. I need more volume. But that's been the case. Actually, I just took a board down to J Bay in August, and it was I had a 510 AI Bandit. It's a replica of a shortboard design Andy Irons would order, and it's been out of circulation for a few years, and we decided to bring it back because we had so many requests for that. I took a 510 down there. That was fun. But what I rode was this semi mid-length twin with trailer, a 6.6, and rode that at J Bay. It's just perfect for the points. And because I have a back issue right now that I'm recovering from, it just really helped me with paddling and catching waves. And that was really fun. So I'm just riding different things. I'm just trying to figure out right now what works best for me, ironically. And so it's fun though, because I'm not really set on one thing, and I'm realizing I'm not in denial. I used to be in denial, and saying like I'm gonna ride 18 and 5/8 and 2 and 3/8 and 5.11. But I'm doing a lot better. I'm in denial. I used to be in denial that I was denial, but I admit right now that I am in denial somewhat. So I'm progressing on.
That's progress. I agree.
So, I am riding thicker, wider. That's progress.
I like it. That's a great answer. Well, we mentioned it before you go. We did put out a feeler for questions at the Lineup Pod on Instagram. We got a bunch for you, but we've whittled them down to 3. First question is maybe relevant to what we were just talking about. It's from Rick Devriant. I probably screwed that up. But the question is, when is it time to step away from a high performance shortboard? Please tell me the signs.
Is when you're missing more waves than you ever have past, and when you're having trouble getting to your feet, when you're not making as many drops as you were the year before, and that's when you start looking for more length and more volume. Got to get past the denial stage.
Great answer. Second question is from @JakeIsHam_, who asks, what is the best 3-board quiver anyone can have?
I'm not sure how to answer that. It's different things to different people. So you could ask a CT surfer or just your average Joe that is just trying to get his share of waves in Orange County, or an Aussie surfer that's surfing some of the points on the Gold Coast. For here, let me speak to a surfer in Hawaii. Say
Great.
Right now,
Yep.
our season coming to the North Shore. So it's really hard to come to the North Shore with one board. So 3 boards, I would say, is like, really, if you seriously want to surf the North Shore and experience the North Shore and the waves, 3 boards is a minimum. So you can still use the shortboard. If your everyday shortboard, say in California, as I say, a 5'11", 18 3/4. Let's just 5'11", say 5'11", 19 2.5. I'm going to say, like, here from the North Shore, a shortboard, you'd be surfing Rocky Point, VLAN. You can stick with a 5'11", pretty close, maybe a narrower tail, a little more rocker. 5'11" to 6'0", same width, same thickness. You need a step up, your first step up. You could go to a 6'1" or a 6'2", 18 and 19, 18 7/8, 2.5, maybe just a bit more. And then I'd go straight up to a 6'6". A 6'6" might seem a longboard to some people, but 6'6" is really, it's a utility board for the North Shore. And that would be the minimum, 6'6", 18 7/8, 2 and 5/8. Yeah, but I mean that's just a general recommendation.
I think that's a great
3
answer.
would be the very minimum. Really, you could fill that in. Yeah.
And just a sub bonus question there for listeners out there, listeners who are coming to the North Shore and wanting to get maybe a 3-board quiver from Arakawa, where can they go and how can they dial this up?
Yeah, well, we have a factory right here in the North Shore and factory showroom, so you can just Google us and we should be easy to find. Love
it. Last question from the Instagram folks, and they've packed 2 questions into one here, but it is from Matson Colbert, who asks, in your career, who is the easiest surfer to make a board for, and also who is the most difficult?
Okay, let's see. The pickiest. So I'll qualify my answers to those questions. Probably the pickiest surfer, the most painstaking process to each board that I built for this person would be Michae Ho by far. Super picky. He knew exactly what he wanted and he knew exactly what he felt. And so he wouldn't take me down any rabbit trails, but he definitely knew what he was talking about. And Mike was that because he just didn't want good boards. He wanted magic boards. He'd tell me, like, Eric, this board's good, but I can't win on it. And that was the standard. The easiest was the same generation. I would say is Ronnie Burns. And he would, where Mike would be in the shape room with every single board. And Ronnie would just order his boards and just, he just wait. He wouldn't call up to see if his boards were done. He'd just wait. And when his boards got done, he got on them and he ripped. So, yeah. We're talking about extremes now. So there's a lot of other people in between, like over the years. But to answer the question, yeah.
I love that question. I love that answer. And thanks to everyone who wrote in at the lineup pod. We're now down, Eric, to our final segment. This is the lightning round. So these are 10 questions for you to answer as quickly as you can. First one.
That makes me nervous.
If you personally could only have one board setup for the rest of your life, single fin, twin fin, thruster, quad, bonzer, or finless, which would you choose?
Thruster. I remember during the single fin days, I remember Simon Anderson winning back-to-back events on a thruster. I remember in the magazine, I saw a photo of the thruster, 3 fins. I remember saying, that looks so stupid. Maybe I didn't use that word. I probably thought of it, but I remember thinking like that looks so stiff. That can't work. But Simon won 2 events on it, being a big guy, and I was in California at the time, shaping for the brewer shop. I was going up and down. Driving up from Encinitas, driving up to Oceanside, and shaping boards in Gary Linden's factory. But I was in Encinitas, and then one day we hear, hey, Greg Mungo's back from Australia, and he's riding a thruster, one of those 3-fin boards, and he's out at Swami's. And so we get in the truck, drive out to Swami's, and look over the bluff, and it's early in the morning, and we're watching Greg surf, and I remember seeing the first wave he took off on, and he just drives straight down, does this deep bottom turn, and just comes up and just goes, and just takes the lip off the board and comes back around without even losing any speed, and comes back and just gouges the face of the wave. And I'd never seen any turns like that on a single fin. And I remember my jaw dropped, and I decided, like, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to build myself a thruster. I remember being in my shaping room and just going like, I can't even draw. I can't draw the outline of like a squash. I've never even drawn a squash tail before. My templates didn't fit because they were single fin templates. So I ended up having to draw the tail with one of my noses, because with all the curves, so I could get that hip, curve in the hip. And then I just kind of just penciled in the squash tail, what looked right to me. And I didn't know where the fins go. I just go, okay, I think this looks right, this, that. Put it there and glassed on fins. And I remember going out to my local break, and I caught my first wave. And I kicked out, and I told myself, I will never, ever ride a single fin again. And so that's a long answer to that question.
I love that answer. That's amazing.
Thruster.
Okay. Second question. Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Good coffee.
Okay. Third question. Burrito or pizza?
Burrito.
Last book you read?
Simon Sinek's, I forget the title. The Why. I think that's it.
Best surf film ever?
I'm going to say 5 Summer Stories. It's going to really show my age and generation. For a couple of reasons. For the soundtrack. And the impression it made on me as a young surfer. I remember watching Lopez and a bunch of my other surf heroes surfing in 5 Summer Stories. And I remember being at the theater going like, surfing will never ever get better than this. This is the state of the art. It will never ever get better. And it was my favorite surf movie with the soundtrack. And I remember I ended up telling my glass shop manager that. And for Christmas, he bought me a digital version of 5 Summer Stories. And I was so excited, and I go, I'm just going to wait for a special time to watch this when no one's around, and I can just watch this movie uninterrupted. And I remember sticking it in my DVD player and watching it, and I'm just sitting on the edge of the couch, and I'm watching these guys surfing. I'm going like, do something. And I'm going, oh, that he dug that rail caught. Oh, that board looks stiff. And I remember thinking way back when I was just a kid, thinking surfing will never ever get better than this.
Right.
And you can look at surfing right now, the state of performance surfing. You just go like, what more can you do?
Right.
But perhaps in 10, 20 years, we'll be going like, looking at some of these old surf videos, these edits, and going like, do something, do something. It's hard to imagine that.
Yeah, I understand.
But who knows? Who knows? 5 Summer Stories.
I love that answer. Greg McGillivray was on the podcast, and I was reminded all over again how much I love that film too. It was amazing. So,
yeah.
What is one wave you never have to go back to?
Wow, I never have to go back to. Well, that caught me off guard. One wave I never have to go back to.
Yeah.
There's some ways that I would prefer not to surf, but
Sure.
it'd probably do me well to surf, to stay in tune. I don't know. I mean, maybe Waimea.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't know if that's a good answer.
That's fine. A lot of people don't have an answer for this one. They're just like, no, I don't have one. Like I'd go back to it.
Yeah, I mean, I've surfed it. I mean, it's like I don't really have any desire.
Right. Yeah, right. Been there. Yeah.
I watch these guys doing what they're doing right now. They can keep doing it. I'm happy to build boards for that wave, but I don't ever have to go back out there again.
Okay. Next question. And you can dreamcast this. This should just be perfect conditions, you and your friends, whatever. But if you only get to surf one wave for the rest of your life, where would that be?
Wow. And I get to surf it every day without anyone?
Whatever you like.
Yeah. You know what? I would love to surf G-Land again with just my friends out. Nobody there. We just surf it every day. I'm a goofy foot.
Great answer. I am too. I was fortunate enough to go there a couple of years ago when we had the event, and didn't have like amazing swell while we were there, but like what a special place, and had some really nice afternoons up at Kong's and no one out. Like it's unbelievable. Amazing. Next question. Best person to share a lineup with?
My son.
Good answer. Worst person to share a lineup with?
Worst person to share a line. That is a pointed question.
I won't. People say it often. They're like, I have a person. I'm not naming them. I'm like, well, as long as you have someone, it's all right.
I have a person, but I'm not going
to. Good to know. Good to know. Okay, this is the very last one. Finish this sentence. I will next achieve a state of happiness by.
I will next achieve a state of happiness by fulfilling my God-given purpose here in this world.
Great answer. Eric Arakawa, I said at the upfront, it was a genuine honor to have you on the podcast. Exceeded all my expectations. It's really nice to meet you and talk to you. Congrats on all your success. I hope everyone checks out Arakawa Surfboards. And maybe I'll catch up with you in a week when I'm on the North Shore, man. I really appreciate you taking the time.
All right. Great. Thanks for having me on, Dave. And yeah, if you're here on the North Shore, we'll get a cup of coffee, a good cup of coffee.